As a premier community in Hampton Roads, James City County strives to maintain a high quality of life for all citizens through sound fiscal management and legislative actions. In an ongoing effort to increase transparency, your Board of Supervisors holds public meetings to garner citizen input before making important decisions. Here is tonight's meeting agenda. Stay tuned. The Board of Supervisors meeting will begin shortly.
Let me call this meeting of the James City County Board of Supervisors to order for the purpose of a regular meeting. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Sir, Mr. Eisenhower?
Here.
Mr. Eisenhower represents the Jamestown District. Mr. Hipple? Here. Mr. Hipple represents the Powhatan District. Ms. Sadler?
Here.
Ms. Sadler represents the Stonehouse District and is Vice Chair of the Board. Mr. McGlennon?
Here.
Mr. McGlennon represents the Roberts District and is Chair of the Board. Sitting to my far left is Adam Kisman, County Attorney, and I'm Scott Stevens, County Administrator, and it's my pleasure to be Clerk to the Board. Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. This evening, we were scheduled to have a public hearing on item number 5, which is Ford's Village. The applicant has requested that public hearing be postponed for 2 months to our June 14th meeting. And so while we will open the public hearing this evening, I will tell you that there will not be a presentation of that case tonight. If anybody had signed up to speak during that public hearing tonight, you may do so, but you may only speak once during the public hearing process, and so it might be advisable to wait until June 14th until you see any revisions that may be made in the proposal. So with that, we'll move on to our regular meeting. And we'll begin with a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And tonight's pledge leader comes from the Stonehouse District, so I'll ask Ms. Sadler to handle the introductions.
Sure. Charlotte, come on up. This evening's pledge leader is Charlotte Rose Walker. She's a 4th grader at JBB. Her parents are Scott and Jennifer Walker of Toano. She's got a brother, Chip Walker, who's a 7th grader at Toano Middle. Charlotte is a member of the Williamsburg Warriors Lacrosse, Williamsburg Hornets Cheer, Upward Basketball, has recently been accepted into the Visions program, has been elected homecoming princess and queen by her peers, and was chosen to read to younger students at her school, JBB. So if we could all stand, and after a moment of silence, if you would please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Charlotte, if you could come on up, please. We have something for you. Maybe my fellow colleagues, board members would come behind us. Here's a pen for you. And here is a certificate. And turn around, and Mr. Percy. Mom wants to get your picture. Thank you.
First item on the agenda then is public comment, and I have one speaker card, Ms. Marie Bona. Marie Bond, is that? Marie Bond, I'm sorry. If you just give your name and address for the audience.
Yes, thank you very much for having me have a few moments of your time. I want to make a public comment, even though I know it's not on your agenda yet, but it's concerning the roundabout survey that I received through the email about the intersection of 199 and John Tyler. I understand that there is some work to be done out there that VDOT would like to do. The Green Spring Garden Club, which I represent, has donated $25,000 in 2013 to, actually in 2008, when they first drew up the plan, we decided to donate the money for the plantings out there on the two sides of the road, on each side of Strawberry Plains. And that backs up to the lake and the other side. And VDOT decided they needed to add a turn lane. And the turn lane was in the original plan, but they did not plan for that when we planted. And so they took all of our plantings out on one side. When I became president of the club in 2012, I decided to go and talk to them. So I met with Carlton Abbott's architect and the Scott White, who was with the James City County Board. And they had a new supervisor at the time in their department, and he allowed the plantings to be replaced and redone. And we appreciate that very much because it was hard-earned money that we earn every year. Our club is a nonprofit. We take care of the beauty and the certification of scholarships and all of the community beautification projects in the town, and have for 61 years. And we would like to formally announce that we will not, the 50 members and 15, associate members, excuse me, will not stand for this to be retaken out again. We will not put up with it, and we're going to fight it. So I just wanted to make a public comment about it and appreciate your time. I'll be glad to leave this paper with whoever I'm supposed to of what my comments were. And there is a plan that was drawn, and it will show you that. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Do you
Ms.
have any
Bond.
questions?
No, thank you, but thank you for the work that your organization has done to beautify the community as well.
Well, we appreciate your time so much, but we just wanted to put everyone on notice that we're going to fight it. We're not going to stand for it.
If you'd like to leave that paper with the young lady at the front desk, that'd be
Okay.
great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We now moved on to the consent calendar. We have 3 items on the consent calendar, and tonight all 3 of those items are initiations of considerations of amendments to the zoning ordinance. In the first case, to consider the possible amendments regarding how density is calculated for residential development. In the second case, it is a consideration of revisions to the zoning ordinance to consider possible amendments regarding community recreation facilities in residential districts. And the third item is to consider possible amendments regarding the use list of the general business district B1. Does anybody wish to remove any of those items from the consent calendar?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent calendar. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hippel? Aye. Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I should mention that Ms. Larson is, did you cover that already, Ms. Stevens?
I did not.
No. Ms. Larson is not with us this evening due to a family emergency, and we wish her family well in this situation. We now move on to the public hearings, and the first public hearing will be handled along with the second item. They relate to the tax rate and to the budget for the next year. And I think we'll ask Ms. Day to make a presentation.
I'm going to kick us
Sorry,
off, Chairman.
Mr. Stevens.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. On your agenda this evening are 2 public hearings. One public hearing is for the proposed real property tax increase that was a result of property values increasing as part of our real property reassessment process, and a public hearing for our fiscal year 2023-2024 county biennial budget. Sharon Day, our Financial Management and Services Director, and I have one presentation that will cover both public hearing topics. At the end of our presentation, we would ask that you conduct each public hearing separately as required by state code. As you know, James City County has a 2-year budget cycle with FY23. Are you moving slides, please? Thank you. Sorry, Jason. With FY23 being the first year of the biennial budget. It is the only year for which funding will be appropriated for spending, and FY 2024 is the second year and serves as a plan. For FY 2023, the proposed budget is $233.4 million, or 4% more than the current year. My main focus in preparing this proposed budget was service to the community, with a particular focus on staffing, community appearance, and the capital projects that are in our 5-year plan. Staffing has been a challenge. As you know, and many in our community with businesses, we have had a challenge in recruiting and retaining staff. And employees are great at helping to cover one another and delivering county services so that it really is seamless to the public. The challenge for us this year is it wasn't seamless. We had times where we closed convenience center for several months. We've modified hours of our convenience centers. We closed a child care site. We discussed reducing pool hours. It never got to that. Our building permit inspection process had to be modified in terms of how we schedule inspections, and there's been a lot of behind the scenes of moving workloads and shifting personnel. When we're reviewing who was leaving, we found 60% of our turnover the past 2 years were in lower pay grades and employees that were here less than 5 years. And over the past 2 years, we spent a lot of time training, losing, hiring, and retraining employees, which has an impact on our service delivery. The Board of Supervisors approved moving our minimum hourly pay from $9.64 per hour in December to $12 an hour in February. And in looking at vacancies and to help with recruitment for our summer workforce, we discussed accelerating the pay increase proposed for next fiscal year to April of this year, which is proposed as a $1,500 and 5% increase for our employees. Following this increase, the minimum pay for our employees will move up to $13.36 per hour, or $28,000 per year for our lowest paid employee. The proposed budget includes 8 new positions, conversions of 4 part-time to full-time to meet the growing needs of our community, and the reclassification and career ladder implementation to help with retention of our existing staff. Community appearance. I hear a lot about improving our community appearance for those that live here and visitors to our community. There is $900,000 more in this year's budget as compared to last to fund an additional road crew, do more mowing along our roadways, to do additional litter pickup, and to replace some of our street name signs with larger, more visible road name signs. It is an ongoing effort, but we are putting a lot of resources towards the community appearance and keeping it what we expect it to be. And finally, capital needs. Our capital improvement plan, or our CIP, is a 5-year projection of needs with 1 year of approved funding. Included in the 5-year CIP is funding for parks, building maintenance, large vehicle purchases such as fire apparatus or EMS equipment, our purchase of development right or open space protection program, our school facilities, etc. New in this 5-year CIP is funding for pre-K space and new library space. And in addition, the county has outgrown most of its facility and needs 50% more space for our employees to work to serve this community by 2040. 2 projects that begin to address this issue are the replacement of our general services complex and the renovation of our social services department. But just these 4 projects alone add more than $85 million to our 5-year CIP that wasn't there yet last year. So it's significant in our projections. And I anticipate another significant need in the next 5 to 10 years on top of that. At this time, I would ask Ms. Sharon Day to discuss the proposed budget in more detail and the real estate tax assessment. Ms. Day.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors. In terms of the total budget, while we spend most of our time discussing our operating and our capital budgets, the county actually has 8 total funds. Our general fund is the county's main operating fund, as well as our largest fund. It's the first item listed on this slide. And our capital projects fund is the second most significant fund, and it includes both county projects as well as projects for our school division. Our other funds, which are listed, include our debt service fund, which is used to pay our outstanding debt obligations, and several other funds that are used to account for some rather substantial federal and state grants that the county receives and uses to provide services to our residents, including social service programs and numerous housing programs. I wanted to draw attention to the interfund transfer line at the bottom and explain why that's a deduction when we add up our total budget. And the reason we have that presented in that fashion is because we have some revenue sources that come into one fund and are then moved to another fund for actually spending. And a good example of that is our lodging tax. We assess a 5% lodging tax on hotel rooms here at the county. That revenue comes into our general fund, but 3% of that 5% has to be used for tourism purposes, according to a state mandate. So the money comes to the general fund, but it's then moved to our tourism fund. Our tourism fund receives the money and then spends the money. So we eliminate that duplication by that last line item referred to as interfund transfers. In terms of our general fund, and again, which is known as our operating fund, our total general fund budget for fiscal year 2023 is $218.2 million. That reflects a $16 million increase, or a little bit less than 8% over the current year budget. It proposes no change in the real estate tax rate, and the only fee change is in our Medic Transport Recovery Fee Program. And this is the program where we provide ambulance services to our residents. And the change in those fees are really just aligning our fees with the Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement rates. As mentioned, we do have the addition of 6 full-time positions in just our general fund, 4 conversions of part-time to full-time, and then various reclassifications and career ladders. And once again, with this budget cycle, we're faced with the challenge of our estimated costs to continue to provide services being greater than our actual revenue collections. This year, our total requests exceeded our ability to fund by about $3.4 million. And to get into a little bit of the major drivers of the 23 budget, the county's fiscal policy requires that 5% of our annual general fund revenue be used toward capital pay-as-you-go projects. This was suspended during the pandemic, primarily due to the sharp decline in our revenue sources. And our shift at that time was really maintaining our current facilities and operations only. So this $5.1 million addition to the budget is really getting us back to where we were before the pandemic in terms of our pay-as-you-go funding for capital needs. Some of the other drivers, as mentioned, we facilitated a 1,500 5% raise to employees that was implemented this year, so that is continued into next year. Also, again, funding those initiatives that began this year, including the firefighters, a deputy director of real estate, which was a reinstatement of a position abolished during the housing market crash, the addition of a road crew, and the courthouse property maintenance. Also, every 2 years, the Virginia Retirement System, which we participate in, performs an actuarial valuation to determine what the actual benefits will be upon retirement. That valuation reflected a 2% increase in our rate that we must contribute every year. And our health insurance premiums are also going up approximately 3%, which we as the employer share with our employees. And then other fringe benefit increases, for example, in our workers' compensation premiums. Again, we talked about the addition of those full-time positions, conversions of part-time to full-time, and reclassifications. I do think it's important to note here, we do have a number of reclassifications and career ladders, but we do that because it's a more affordable way of addressing our staffing needs. Rather than just adding bodies to the overall head count, we're constantly looking at our operations and streamlining, moving people around, combining positions so that we can really utilize our staff's talents and also minimize the impact on the budget. We also have proposed an increase to the school division for operations of $1.2 million. Our increase in our tourism investment, that has to do with that lodging tax. Again, as our lodging tax goes up, our investment in tourism must also go up. So that's what that $750,000 represents. We have an increase to our Williamsburg Regional Library and other outside agencies that provide services to our citizens that we, the county, do not provide. And then also, again, the increase to that minimum wage from $9.64 to $12, excuse me, an hour. Diving into those personnel additions for fiscal year 2023, as you can see here, what was requested was 16.25 positions. What was actually funded was about 7.75 positions. I think it's important to note that all 16.25 positions did undergo an independent analysis by our Human Resources Department. They evaluate the need of those positions, and they also do a benchmarking comparison with James City County to our counterparts. And of those 16.25 positions, all of those positions were recommended except for one. But again, we were only able to fund 7.75 of those. The slide will go over which positions were actually funded. I also wanted to mention of the 8.5 positions that were not funded, it was really spread across numerous divisions: general administration, finance, our general services department, and also a few positions in our parks and recreation department. So shifting over to the revenue side for our general fund, in terms of our funding sources for our general fund, as you can see, the majority of the county's revenue is derived from our real estate and personal property taxes. That's in the first line item. That comprises about 70% of our total budget. Going over some of the other revenue sources, again, here in general property taxes, this is where our real estate reassessment resides. It did result in an 8.2% overall increase in the total assessed value of real property. I also wanted to touch on the personal property side of things. This year, the NADA appraisal guide, which is what we utilize to assess the value of personal property in the county, was reflecting some pretty significant increases in the vehicle values, particularly used vehicles. Our Board of Supervisors opted to provide tax relief to those who are going to be impacted by that the most by applying an assessment ratio of a 75% of those values versus the full 100%. The result of that action was an overall reduced assessment value over $200 million, and it provides relief to over 65,000 vehicles in the county, which equates to about a $9 million savings to our residents. Also included in this category is growth, development, and new construction. In terms of our other local taxes, this is really the area that we were hardly hit during the pandemic. It includes our sales taxes, our meals taxes, and our lodging taxes. And again, as the economy recovers, we're starting to see these revenues climb back to the pre-pandemic levels. And I wanted to mention that the additional historic triangle 1% sales tax, as well as the cigarette tax, are both entirely allocated to our CIP program, which helps us fund more projects on pay-as-you-go and lower the amount of debt that we have to borrow for. Other revenue sources, our licenses, permits, and fees are relatively level in the 23 budget compared to this year. In terms of our state revenue, it's pretty level as well. The only major change here is a 5% raise that's being proposed to constitutional officers. That's part of the state's most recent budget. We have to pass that raise on, but we also receive a reimbursement from the state for that. And then in our other category, this pretty much encompasses all the other revenue sources that don't fit into one of those other major categories. It includes our fines, charges for services, rent, sale of assets, that type of thing. We are anticipating that our Parks and Rec program, which is the major category in this category, is starting to resume more normal operations. So the cost of those programs will go up, as will the revenue that supports those programs. And then again, as I mentioned previously, the only change in our fee structure is that Medic recovery program for ambulance services, just aligning with those Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement rates. Switching over to the expenditure side of the general fund, our expenditures are broken down by function, which really represents the various departments of the county. And here you can see the largest portion of our operating budget is for education, in the form of our contribution for operations, as well as debt service and capital. And then our second largest category is public safety. That represents about 15% of our budget. Those two areas combined reflect 2/3 of our total operating budget, which means the 1/3 that's left must cover everything else in operations, as well as all of the county's capital needs. This graphic here shows the same information, but really in terms of a dollar. And again, here you can see the biggest chunks going to the school division and public safety. And basically what we're portraying here is for every dollar that is paid into taxes or revenue, 62 cents goes to those two functions alone, 38 cents goes to all the other categories as well as capital. And here we wanted to show, again, the same information in a different way. This is really more of a checkbook perspective. So the average home in the county is valued at $370,000. So on an annual basis, in terms of real estate taxes, it's about $3,100, or on a monthly basis, about $259. And what we're showing here is of that $259 on your monthly budget, about $121 goes to education, public safety is $39, and then again, all those other areas and the individual amounts. Getting back to the average home value and what that means in terms of real estate taxes. So on that $370,000 average home value at an 84-cent tax rate, which is where we currently are, per 100 assessed value, again, that generates about $3,100 in annual real estate tax. If we were to equalize that rate and basically take away the impact of the reassessment, then we would come to a 77.15% tax rate. That generates about $2,855 in annual real estate tax. The difference between those two numbers is your $253 a year, or about $21 a month. I often get asked, what does 1 cent on the tax rate cost the average homeowner? And to answer that question, I've shown here the math on that. It's $37 a year, or $3.08 a month. I wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about the reassessment process itself. In the May and June timeframe of 2021, our office was spending most of their time on the commercial side of things. And that begins with sending information to our businesses, asking for basically their income statement, what their income and expenses have been. From July through December, our appraisers are doing the bulk of their work on the residential side. And here they're collecting information, reviewing the information, looking at permits from our community development office, looking at new construction, home additions. They're actually going out to properties, doing what we call site inspections and also photos. They look at area photos, and they also utilize the MLS, which is used by our real estate agents. They're also looking at individual sales. And the reason they look at the individual sales is to make sure those sales are what we refer to as an arm's length transaction, which basically means it's a reasonable sale between two people. It takes out any sales that may happen, for example, between family members where they're cutting each other maybe a deal. Going through the rest of the process, once they complete their initial analysis on assessments, in January of 2022, the appraisers start reviewing each other's work. They also have 2 levels of senior management that review their work as well. And then in February of 2022, reassessment information is sent to our vendor for printing and also for mailing of the notices to the residents. In March of 2022, the real estate office is primarily engaging with the property owners to answer the questions they have, general questions, and also more specific questions about their property, trying to really explain why 2 properties that may seem very similar are in fact different. They also try to explain the methodology. It's a very convoluted process, and they try to explain what they're looking at and show the information and the documentation that help them determine what that assessment should be. During the month of April 30th is the deadline for the appeal process with the Board of Equalization in order to actually file for an appeal. And then the Board of Equalization conducts its hearings in June of 2022. The county has over 35,000 parcels to manage, and we're fortunate to have a very qualified, experienced appraiser staff. Most of our appraisers have 20+ years of experience, multiple licenses, certifications. They're also required to go annual continuing education to make sure they're really staying on top of what's happening in the market and the field. I wanted to share the phone number here to the public so it's very visible. They encourage you to call and ask questions that you may have about your specific property. Again, here you can see with this timeline, it's at least a year-long process. It allows for that proper due diligence period. So our real estate appraisers can conduct their work, they can engage with the public, the Board of Equalization can conduct their work, and then the budget and tax rate can be finalized, as well as the Commissioner of Revenue and the Treasurer can finalize their land book and get the billings in place. I also wanted to note that the reassessments are on a calendar year basis. So this most recent reassessment is effective on January 1st, 2022, and the first payment on that will be due in December of 2022. And finally, I wanted to mention a few more of the upcoming budget meetings. We do have a business meeting primarily on budget topics scheduled for April 26th at 1 p.m. And currently, the budget is scheduled to be adopted at a regular meeting on May 10th at 5 p.m. Both of those meetings will occur here in this same building and same space. And finally, I wanted to mention some of the other resources that we do have available on our county's website. In addition to our proposed budget, which contains very high-level summary information, as well as the detailed account-by-account information, also in that document is the county administrator's proposed budget. That's a really good area to look to if you want to get the highlights, the main areas of where the money's going, what we're spending it on, and how it ties to the strategic plan and the comprehensive plan. In the supplemental section of that document, we've also included historical information. So you can see 10-year trend information. You can obtain more information on demographics. What is the county's actual population? How has it changed? What's our age brackets? What's our male-female ratio? What's the education level? And finally, we also included, last year it was a new section for us, some appendixes that include all of the county's various tax rates and fees. Again, all this information is available online. We have prior year budgets available back to 1975. They've gotten better with time, I like to say. We also have our audited financial statements. That's referred to as the annual comprehensive financial report. Rather than showing forecasted information, that document shows you actual information. How did we do compared to our budget? And this is audited by outsiders. And it also shows, again, trend information, and we have that information available online back to 2005, but we have documents in our office back to 1950 if you're so interested. And finally, our disbursement register. This we like to refer to as our online checkbook. We include every payment that the county makes to our vendors. We cut checks once a week, and the information is kept up to date as well. And that concludes my remarks on the proposed budget. At this point, I'll turn it back over to our chairman to open the two public hearings. The first one will be on the tax rates themselves, followed by a separate public hearing on the budget.
Sharon, I'm sorry, before you do that, if people do have questions about their recent assessment and want to appeal it, could you possibly read that phone number out loud for them, please?
Absolutely. The real estate office number is 253-6650.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Day and Mr. Stevens, for your presentations. Any board member have any questions for staff at this time? No? If not, then let me go ahead and open the public hearing. And the first speaker card I have is Dan Roos.
Good evening, board. My name is Dan Roos. I'm in Berkeley District, 3292 Reeds Way here in Williamsburg. Been here since 2006. I'm married. I have 12 children, so I'm vested in the community. And I'm also a financial broker. I have a business in the area. It's successful, thank God. And I have licenses in investments and securities, and I'm also a mortgage licensed broker as well. So I have a little bit of information about this, which I think is very fun. So first of all, I just want to tell you guys and gals, thank you for your service. This is not an easy task, and we appreciate all the hard work you put in on this. As it pertains to the real estate piece, I'm sure that the assessment was very professional and very well done. I have no qualms with the numbers that they propose. I don't think that's an issue. However, when you look at that, and with all the other pieces to the puzzle that are on, like today they just reported that inflation's at 8.5%. Wages have gone up, but they really have not been keeping pace with the rate of all the other goods and services going up. Here in James City County, we have a lot of members that are actually on a fixed income, and their fixed income is not raising at an 8% rate. The Fed is about to raise rates, which have an impact. It's going to be going up about 1 full percentage points in the next 60 days. That has a huge impact, especially on people that have variable debt. And I suspect those are people here in James City County. Now, as it pertains specifically to the housing, the assessment has gone up. My house itself, most people's houses have probably gone up, I would say more like 20, 25% in value in James City County. However, I would tell you that that's probably more of an artificial raise. What I mean by that is if you look at the community as a whole and you look forward, like most people in finance or economics will do, in the next 6, 12, 18 months, you are going to see a huge drop in prices because people paying $20,000, $30,000 for a home over the assessed value is not sustainable. There will be a lot of foreclosures that are coming in the next 12-ish months, and that will happen in James City County. And the values, although there are a lot of people I've seen through the county where their home values have gone up $100,000. That's fantastic. They will not have that raise next year. If you guys do an assessment on all of our properties next year, that $100,000 will be gone. So if the assessment is done at this level, next year it will have a much bigger impact because the values that we have won't actually meet those levels, if that made sense. So my, when I think about the numbers that I'm seeing, with inflation being 8.5%, the budget, you did a great job going through the budget, by the way. The general fund's up 8%, and the increase in just the real estate property is increasing about 8.16%, I thought it said on the budget. But coupled with gas prices up 48%, food prices up 10%, and all these other pieces to the puzzle, the impact is actually really big. And I know it is smart to do the budget out to what is a 1% increase? It's only like $3 a month. But when you multiply that by $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes, you're actually talking about a decent amount of money, and that has a huge impact. So my recommendation, or the thing that I'd like to request from you all, is I saw in the proposal there where it showed that the lowered rate was 77.15 cents, which would give you the exact same amount that you had last year, but keeping it at the 84%, it actually raises it 8.16%. And I would like to request that you guys actually think of a number in between there, so it can be fair to both of us. There was something on the budget that said the whole overall budget was going up 4%, yet the general fund's going up 8%. And the real estate property tax is actually going up 8.16%. So my recommendation and my charge to you all is, if based on all of the information that I just provided, that you guys consider, guys and gals, consider that not to keep the real estate tax at 0.84%, but somewhere in between the 77 and 8.4, which would still give you an increase, but also give us relief as well, recognizing that if we keep the property tax where it is proposed at this moment, it's really a tax on unrealized gains, and nobody should be taxed on unrealized gains. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Roos. Robin Pawlowski.
Good evening. My name is Robin Pawlowski, and I've lived here since 1987 and raised 3 children. And my husband and I have really invested in the community, so I'm tagging on to what Dan said. But I live at 103 Oxford Circle, Williamsburg, and I'm in the Berkeley district. And I'm highly recommend that our board reduce the tax rate at least by 1 cent. Inflation is at an all-time high. And this is creating many economic issues for the citizens in our county and in our state and across the country. We need relief from inflation. And so this may be one way to help the county residents here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ronald Pawlowski.
Good evening. That's pretty good on my name pronunciation. I appreciate it.
I did better than on your wife's, right?
My name is Ron Pawlowski. I live at 103 Oxford Circle in the Berkeley district. I want to express my concern about this increased rate of the tax assessment this year. In this time of increased financial burdens, those of us on a fixed income would greatly appreciate assistance from our elected officials instead of additional burdens. I've never had to pay $50 to put gas in my vehicle, I'm sure all of you have had a similar experience at the gas pump and also at the grocery stores. I understand that costs are increasing, but is it truly necessary for our taxes to increase that much? I believe that you need to reconsider the amount of this rate increase in order to help the residents of this county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bruce Biederman?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll be ever so brief. With James City County and Williamsburg in particular being a very popular retirement area, and with a large population of seniors that we've got that are impacted by the rampant inflation on everything they need for their daily lives. I mean, Tom Brady retired, he even had to go back to work with the price of gas, right? So with that, I would respectfully like to ask that there's a reduction in the tax rate of at least a penny. I'm Bruce Biederman. I'm in Stonehouse District, 9120 Manorwood Way, and that's in Toano, 23168. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for getting your name mispronounced there. Gary Lane? I hope I got that one right.
Thank you for having me. Good evening. My name is Gary Lane. I live in Colonial Heritage. And
would you mind giving your address?
Pardon me?
Would you mind giving your address?
At 4247 Old Lock Road.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd appreciate a tax reduction. I live on a fixed income. And obviously everything's getting high today. But my grandchildren would appreciate it also. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne Marie Smith.
Hey, good evening. Anne Marie Smith, 105 Underwood Road. I'm in the Roberts District. I think we can all agree we're experiencing unusual trends in the real estate sales prices, and this trend or bubble is just not sustainable, and inevitably the prices are going to come down. However, once enacted, property tax rates rarely go down. So the proposed rate outpaces the average median household income here in James City County. So I'd propose that you accept the 1 cent tax rate reduction that was presented. And while the new rate is still outpacing income, the reduction is concedable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Richard Hanley.
Good evening. My name is Richard Hanley. I live at 216 Wareham's Point. That's in the Roberts District. And I have been coming in and out of Williamsburg since 1974 when Mr. McGlennon was my counselor at William & Mary, and I did make it through. Thank you very much.
You make us both sound old.
We've been back since 2009, living in the community next door here. And now I am retired, and I am one of those fixed income guys. I think that with the inflation, and again announced this morning at 8.5%, and having just come out of the pandemic, which had an income on all of our economies and of scale, et cetera, that the increase to our properties, and I see that the average was 8.2%. My property was 13.1%. And so I would appreciate your consideration of lowering that 84 cents per hundred to anything less than that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Steve Corcoran.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, my name is Steve Corcoran. I live in Roberts District, 133 Greens Way, Williamsburg 23185. Here to talk about the proposed tax increase. These are not going to be new points, but I'll make them as best I can. Again, inflation is up year over year at this point, above 8%. Residents of James City County are getting squeezed on, let's say, $1 of disposable income as a result. In addition, with property values up 8%, appraised values up 8%, that leads to an 8% property tax increase. It would appear as proposed, at least at the 84-cent level, tax rate level. I would ask for the Board of Supervisors to consider a decrease in that tax rate such that that provides some relief relative to this proposed increase in property taxes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Jay Everson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Everson, 6923 Chancery Lane, ably and magnificently represented by Ms. Sadler at the Stonehouse District.
Thank you.
I'll just be real short and to the point. Somewhere between 77.15 and 84 would be a wonderful thing for you to do for us. And at $21 at that 1 cent, that didn't even fill up half my gas tank this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. Gregory Dries?
In 5 who got my name pronounced correctly the first time.
As they say,
Literally.
even a broken clock
I am
is
in
right
awe
twice a
because
day.
it's a German pronunciation, and most people get it wrong. Anyway, my name is Gregory Dries. I live at 6236 Somerset Lane, Williamsburg, Virginia. That's in the villages of Westminster Plan. I think my voting, I think I'm with Sue Sadler. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, Mr. Hipple, thank you. Now I know.
Thank you.
I'm going to echo many of the sentiments that we heard earlier. I do want to congratulate the young lady. She gave an excellent presentation. My purpose in coming here, again, with so many others, is to urge the board to reduce the tax rate. In my plan, there is a large section of the plan in smaller villa-type homes, and they're pretty much predominantly on fixed income. When the letters came out of the increases in the assessment, every street corner was populated with people having negative conversations about this assessment. They don't know how they're going to handle it. This recent escalation in home valuations, in and of itself, is going to cause more of a windfall, a good budget income, additional income to the county. It's going to happen. And Mr. Roos said much of that assessment is artificial, and that is going to come down. And no, we should not be taxed on an artificial value. We should be taxed on the real property value, not some inflated number just because of inflation. But inflation rates are high, and many of the projections that the federal government is putting out is we haven't seen anything yet. So it doesn't paint a pretty picture for those of us who are on a fixed income. Although the average values that were cited by the young lady as far as what it would cost the average homeowner for a $370,000 home did not seem that bad. But when you look at it from the perspective of the inflation rate, the groceries are going to go up, and a lot of this we haven't seen anything yet. It's going to hit, and I think we all recognize that. This tax rate is the last thing we need. So like so many others before me, I strongly urge the board to consider a tax rate below 84 cents. 80 would be nice. I'd be good with 80. Thank you very much for your time. And one other thing, I came in from Pennsylvania. My name is Pennsylvania Dutch Heritage. We chose Williamsburg because I used to live in Newport News in the 80s. And I didn't want to go back there. And I looked at Williamsburg and I thought, this is one really nice place to live. It was a wonderful place in the 80s to come visit, to shop and everything else. and it's an absolutely wonderful place to live now. So that attests positively to all the hard work that you all do. So I thank you for all that, and I urge you to lower the tax rates to kind of give some of those senior citizens a fighting chance to get through what's coming. That's all I have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Robert Fryer?
Thank you, lady and gentlemen. As you can tell from my accent, I'm not originally from here. I'm from away. But in any event, the first gentleman that talked, I didn't catch his name, pretty much covered my points too. But the point that I want to make is that according to the young lady's presentation, the average tax rate has gone up only 8.2% in valuation. If I'm correct on reading that prompt at slide. The point I want to make, though, is that for many of us, and I checked in our neighborhood, our valuation has gone up 20 to 25%. Now, that should be a red flag in terms of the valuation. I think perhaps the first gentleman that spoke talked about values based on present-day sales that probably will not last that long. That's probably part of it. But perhaps the assessors who do the valuation would look at this discrepancy between 8.2 and 20, 25. I heard 13% with one of the people also. And figure out how, by adjusting the tax rate, that can be made more fair. That's all I have. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Curtis Stolt?
Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I appreciate your time. Retired Lieutenant or Full Colonel Curtis Stolt. I live at 303 Moody's Run. I essentially retired, so that I'm fixed income. 303 Moody's Run in Roberts District. It's a hard act to follow all these people. They have mentioned everything that I would mention as well, but I can get into more specifics. And I'm sure everybody's personal situation would be very similar to mine. That in 2016, the tax rate hasn't changed, I don't believe. It's 0.84 for many, many, many years. But what's happened is the unrealistic rise in house prices. My tax rate went up, not rate, but taxes went up 4.5% in 2016, went up 5.7% in 2020, and 10.4% this year. At that rate, that's unsustainable for those of us who are retired. South Carolina is becoming a more and more popular looking state in my mind at this point. So just want to say that the tax rate has not changed. From what my research and my studies, the unrealistic increase in prices of houses has, and that's going to change, as that's already been mentioned. I wanted to call attention the supervisors on the state code. I can give you the number here, if I can find it, which to me indicates, if I read it right, but it is written in legalese, but at 58.1-3321, effect on rate when assessment results in tax increase, public hearings is the title for that particular code. It states in there that the taxes should not go up by more than 1%. I would just call your attention to that. If you would look at that and consider that. I know the assessors did a great job, but I went through my particular neighborhood of 49 different houses, and there was a pretty wide spectrum of the tax rate changes over the years. So they do a great job. It's an impossible job, but I think that there's some attention to detail that needs to be looked at a little more thoroughly. But I don't think this tax rate, or not that, again, the tax rate hasn't changed, but the taxes need to be reevaluated, and I appreciate your opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gilbert Petrina?
Good evening. My name is Gil Petrina. I live at 4747 Yeardley Loop, Williamsburg, in the Berkeley District. I've lived here since 2005, and with the time we're on, I don't want to belabor the points that my fellow citizens have made. I just want to add a few Supporting points, first off, I'd like to thank Mr. Stevens, and certainly the presentation makes a very simple way to present what is going on in our community and what you're doing and what you have to do with a budget to keep James City County an exceptional community. And I appreciate all the comments from my fellow citizens, and I can't add any more to that. So all I would say is add my voice to asking the board to lower the tax rate to somewhere below 84 per 100, 83 and 7715, and as close to 7715 as possible. I appreciate your attention and appreciate the great work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stan Dykstra.
Evening. Stan Dykstra, 3215 Derby Lane. I've lived there close to 40 years. I'd like to continue to reside there. I always say that I'm going to make one more move, and that's in one box with me in it. And that's kind of like the way I'd like to see this go. The real estate assessment really hit all of us hard. When I opened the envelope and looked at it, my jaw dropped. And it was really astounding that this was going on. I was here for the last real estate bubble in the 2006-2007 time frame, and as you may recall, the bottom fell out in that one too. So I expect the same thing to happen, and we're going to be stuck with a high assessment and nothing to show for it. So I'd just like to add my support to those that are requesting a reevaluation of the rate. And if you would please take another look at that, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Zabinski.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Zabinski. I live at 5133 Ginger Court in the Powhatan District. And I moved to Williamsburg in 2017 when I retired from the Army. This is the first place I've ever lived that really felt like home. So I'm very happy to be living here in Williamsburg. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm also a disabled veteran, and one of the reasons I chose to move to Virginia was the lack of property tax on your primary home and primary vehicle in the state of Virginia. So I would like to extend my thanks to my fellow citizens for showing their gratitude for the sacrifices of veterans like myself in that benefit for us, because in times like this, it's a very large benefit. But I do want to stand in solidarity with my fellow citizens to urge you to reduce the tax rate to help offset the dramatic increase in the assessments. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Henderson.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Manager, Chris Henderson, 101 Keystone, Williamsburg, Virginia. I want to talk about a couple of different issues related to the real estate tax rate itself. I've been a real estate broker for almost 40 years. Hard to believe, but it's been almost 40 years that I've been active in this community, buying, selling, trading, developing real estate. And during that time, we've seen significant increases in the real estate tax rate. And I want to specifically talk first about the impact that the real estate tax rate has on our local businesses, because that's not something that anybody has addressed yet. Real estate taxes are a cost of doing business, and currently our small businesses are extremely stressed. When the pandemic first started, we had tenants that came to us in the properties that I own and manage. They came to us seeking rent relief because they were unable to operate under the COVID restrictions. Many had to furlough employees, many kept employees on as a result of EIDL and PPP loans and so forth that were able to keep people on the payroll. But those businesses still have not recovered. And so there's a cause and effect for everything. And so as businesses continue to struggle and seek to replace the income that they were making prior to the pandemic, they're constantly under profitability pressure. And so you should consider your local businesses and the impact that any increase in their tax rate will have on the viability of our small businesses. We saw about a third of our small businesses, particularly the newer ones, unable to sustain operation and close. That's a significant impact. But it's not just for small businesses. We saw it at the outlet mall, where there was significant turnover. Prime has done a good job replacing many of those tenants, but again, they're new to market and still building a clientele. So from a business perspective, when you lump on additional cost, then they've got to make more income and to pay those bills, which adds additional pressure to pricing. So that's a component that hasn't been addressed. The other is affordability. I actually have a couple of folks that work for me that were trying to buy starter homes. And there are no starter homes in James City County. With construction costs currently $200 a square foot or more, it's almost impossible to buy a home for less than $200,000. So we are quickly coming to the point where we're pricing people out of the market. And these are people that we need in our community to do the work that many of us benefit from. So we have to consider again, well, what are the impacts of the real estate tax rate on affordability? I know it's one of our comprehensive plan goals is to increase affordability of housing, and the tax rate directly impacts that. Because for each dollar of additional real estate tax that's got to be paid, someone has to show additional income in order to support it to qualify for a mortgage. So I want you to think about the impact on affordability that these decisions make. And then I guess lastly, I want to challenge you to think about ways in the future that we might recognize the sacrifices that have been made by our veterans who have moved into our community, to look at some potential savings on the first $100,000 or $200,000 of equity or tax valuation in their homes, and the same for our seniors, because we have a high concentration of senior citizens in our community that are on a fixed income. I know it's not something that can be done in one cycle, but it's something certainly that would be a reflection of what we value as a community, and I would encourage you to look for ways to recognize our seniors and our vets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. That's the last card I have for this public hearing, so I will close this hearing. We are not taking any action on this item tonight, but if anybody has any comments they'd like to make before we
I
move
would
on.
just like to make a request. After, Mr. Chair, after speaking with my colleagues and with Mr. Stevens, and based on the comments I've heard this evening, I would like to have a list, please, a comprehensive list of any budgetary items to consider prior to our next business meeting that could be applied to reductions in our real estate tax to aid our citizens with inflationary increases. And these items I'd ask be considered as wants versus needs and prioritization of critical items. And I would ask that these items not include personnel and staffing, because I think we are all very much aware of those needs. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you for the pen.
All right, so I will go ahead and then open the second public hearing, which relates to the budget, and Anne Marie Smith.
A little less prepared to ask this, but based on the presentation, I had a couple questions. If you can answer them, great. If not, you can get back with me.
If
you can't hear me?
You can certainly ask the questions, and we'll get back to you
Okay,
with those
sounds
answers.
good. Is that better? You can hear me better? I think we noted that by 2040, we would need 50% more space. My question on that is whether hoteling had been considered with shared workspaces, as well as remote working, because I think that has changed the dynamic of our workplace. And has that been considered in that percent, the 50% increase? The actual trend has been a decrease in office spaces in the industry and the amount of space needed. So I think I would like to inquire about that, and also how we can view the summary of this study, whether that's online or who did it, et cetera. My second comment would be, I didn't quite understand, maybe we could get a better explanation on the fee of the medical transport fund and how that aligned with Medicare. I don't know whether that means the fee went up or the fee went down. I can tell you from personal experience that I had to take an ambulance to save my life, and I was genuinely shocked at the price that I had to pay. Our county at the time does not have a contract, nor does anybody in the area that is in network. I inquired because they said that my fee was out of network. It was over $500. I was shocked at the fee. I will not take one again because I don't want to pay that. I'll have my husband drive it. I needed it. I might not have made it, but I would seriously consider that. If that rate goes up, I want you to think about that. I don't think that people are aware of how much that actually costs the citizen, especially when you're on a standard. I have a good health care. I'm on Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, but nobody in this area has a contract that's in network that I'm aware of. It's not considered in network. So if that has changed in the last several years, please let me know, but they could not. So again, I would like to inquire if that goes up or down, and I also like citizens to be aware of that, but it's something to consider. Thank you.
And we will provide you with answers, and in particular on that last question, where I think we will be able to reassure you that the county actually does have the ability to provide ambulance service that should not cost county residents for that service.
Is that changed from the past?
Yes, not the immediate past, but it has changed, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's the only speaker card I have for this public hearing, so I'll close the public hearing number 2. And we'll now move on to,
This gentleman said he filled out a form.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir? Has he gone?
Mr. Henderson?
Oh, Mr. Henderson, I'm sorry. This was listed as number 3, but you're certainly welcome to speak on this one if you meant number 2.
I had filled out all the above, so.
The number 3 is the secondary.
Right, and I thought I also had, because I'd asked Teresa about all the items.
Well, you go right ahead and speak
Okay,
to
thank you.
number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I
You're
appreciate.
this is on number 2?
Yes, on number 2, specifically, and I'm delighted to hear Ms. Sadler address the issues regarding needs versus wants in the budget, and I would encourage the board to look specifically at critical needs and eliminate all discretionary spending in this budget cycle so that we can determine what the future is actually going to look like. Some of the studies that I've seen and some of the market folks that I talk to say that lumber prices are actually going to come down in the fall. And so if that happens, then that is potentially good news for construction costs, because when they come down, potentially concrete, plastic costs, and other similar construction materials will decrease in price once we resolve some of these supply chain issues. So if you're looking at new construction this year and renovation, it may be worthwhile considering deferring those until the next cycle where you might benefit from better pricing. And again, that impacts the real estate tax rate because spending directly impacts the real estate tax rate because you can't spend more than you take in. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to public hearing number 3, which is the proposed 6-year secondary road project. I'm sorry. Mr. Leininger is going to handle the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Each year, the Virginia Department of Transportation works with the James City County Board of Supervisors to develop a list of priority projects for the updated secondary 6-year plan through fiscal year 2023 through fiscal year 2028. Each year, the county receives yearly state and federal allocations to fund the proposed secondary improvements. Staff recommends the following priorities for the fiscal year 2023 and 2028 secondary 6-year plan. The first priority is the Croker Road. This project will widen a section of roadway between Richmond Road and the James City County Library from 2 to 4 lanes. Staff recommends keeping this project as the first priority on the SSYP to ensure the project remains fully funded. The second and third priorities proposed for the SSYP are the second and third phases of Long Hill Road. No funding has been allocated at this time. Staff recommends the fourth and fifth priorities to be 2 intersection improvements. VDOT placed temporary bollards at the intersections of Old Stage Road and Route 30 and Centerville Road and Route 5. In coordination with VDOT, the next step for these 2 intersections will be to develop permanent safety improvements. By including these 2 projects as a priority, VDOT is able to begin allocating SSYP funds to the project to begin funding the improvements for future funding cycles. In addition, VDOT utilizes a special funding mechanism that provides annual allocations to localities for unpaved roads and bridge replacements. For unpaved road funding program, the priority project is Peach Street. For the bridge funds, the priority project is Hicks Island Road Bridge. Staff recommends the adoption of the attached resolution, which endorses the secondary road project priority list as set forth in this memo for fiscal year 2023 through 2028. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you.
Could you review again the one at Old Stage, please?
The fourth and fifth priorities, it's the Old Stage Road and Route 30, the right out only, where the temporary bollards were placed.
That's not where that is.
Is that incorrect?
It's not at Route 30, it's in front of the school. You're talking about where Old Stage comes out onto Rochambeau?
Sorry for the typo on our side, but that's the correct location. That's my mistake.
That's okay. Just want to make sure I get my
You're in the right
stuff
spot.
Okay, so it's Old Stage in Rochambeau. And what are the plans for that spot again, please?
As you know, there's been, based on the initial RSA, or the roadway safety audit, there have been some interim improvements put into place. Those improvements are currently undergoing evaluation to determine their effectiveness and, most importantly, to improve the safety aspects of that intersection. And so while that's under review, VDOT is collecting stats. At some point in the near future, we'll catch up with VDOT. They'll come and report back on how that's been, if that's been successful at reducing crashes, and much like the intersection of Route 5 and Green Springs, we'll need to develop permanent solutions from there and permanent improvements. Like I say, don't really want the bollards there forever, but this will allow us to continue to move forward with that project.
Accept my input, I hope.
Yes.
Thank you. Just checking. All right, thanks. That's it.
Other comments or questions? Are you finished with your report, Ms. Long? Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. If not, I'll open the public hearing, and Chris Henderson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Henderson, 101 Keystone. As a regular traveler of roads and byways in James City County, I would have a slightly different list of road priorities for James City County. It took me 4 light cycles to get through Jamestown Road on 199 to attend this meeting. That's unacceptable. And if folks think that's acceptable, it's a failing intersection. This is the intersection of Jamestown and 199. What needs to happen is we need to elevate the through lanes of 199 over Jamestown Road so that there's not a stoppage of traffic there, and create a modified diamond interchange that allows those travelers exiting to Jamestown Road, left or right, the ability to do so without impacting the through traffic. In the original 199 plan, which is at the intersection of Route 5 and 199, there was a plan for an above-grade intersection. That was in the original adopted design for 199 when it was built back in, I guess, 1975, 76, somewhere in that time period. And now is the time to complete that, because then you would be able to travel without stopping, if you're traveling through, all the way down to, I guess it's Brookwood, would be the first intersection that's at grade. And I would encourage you to include in your planning the elimination of any at-grade intersection with 199. That would do more to improve the quality of life of your citizens than just about anything that you could do for highway improvements. The other thing that we're going to live to regret is the elimination of what was called the Croker Road extension that would have allowed traffic to bypass Centerville and 199 that would have extended Croker Road all the way down to Centerville. Centerville Road and Richmond Road was identified long-term as the biggest future road failure in the county. And I hear nothing about improvements for that tangled mess that is growing by the day. So to me, straightening out 199 would be the absolute priority, and that would include Centerville at Richmond because they're linked as a result of the connectivity there, and also looking at how to alleviate traffic in the future from further bottlenecks at Richmond and Centerville. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me just mention that we have John Haldeman from the Planning Commission representing them this evening. I think he was going to be reporting on a couple of cases, but at least the most significant one has melted away. So appreciate his being here tonight for the meeting in any case. We'll move on to, I'm sorry, we have any board discussion on this matter? If not, do I hear a motion to endorse the plan?
Close the.
I'm sorry. I think sorry. Close the public hearing. And now entertain a motion to adopt the resolution endorsing the 6-year plan.
Motion for approval.
Motion to approve. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Public hearing number 4 deals with case LU 20-0002 Eastern State Newtown Edition and LU 20-0003 Eastern State Mixed Use Community Land Use Designation Changes. And Ms. Weissong.
Good evening to the board. At the Board of Supervisors meetings on July 13th, September 28th, and October 26th of 2021, the board considered the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and adopted the plan at the October meeting. As part of its consideration of the plan, the board voted to postpone the 2 Eastern State Land Use Designation Change applications for 6 months or until such time as the rezoning applications for the Eastern State property has been submitted. Since plan adoption in October, the Planning Division has not received a rezoning application for the property contained within either land use application, nor has the Planning Division received any kind of development application for the property encompassed by these 2 applications. Since no rezoning application has been received to date, staff recommends postponing these applications for 12 months or until such time as rezoning applications for the properties involved have been submitted. However, should the board wish to approve a land use designation change to mixed use for one or both the applications at this time, staff recommends the board approve the draft amendment language to the land use section of the 2045 Comprehensive Plan in order to ensure that there is guidance for private development of the Eastern State parcel. Staff is happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for staff before we open the public hearing?
It is open, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, it reopened the public hearing. I just asked before.
I'm all confused about this
Yes,
public hearing.
No? Okay. Let me reopen the public hearing. And we have 2 cards. Mary Cheston.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker, members of the board. My name is Mary Cheston, 5178 Rollison Drive in Newtown, and I'm here on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Newtown Residential Association, which is the homeowners association for about 550 owners adjacent to Eastern State Hospital, where I serve as president. This year actually marks 20 years of Newtown's master plan was originally approved. We have a beautiful community, and its residents love it. But living there daily highlights both attributes and challenges, and my remarks are to please ask you do not exacerbate these challenges by approving either of the 2 Eastern State land use proposals. We have 5 asks of the board, one of which is a long-term ask, and the other 4 we sent to you in a letter. Actions that we're asking you to do in addition to the postponement, because even if you postpone consideration of the changes,
The public and any prospective developers need to have a clear direction as to your expectations for the new area. Our first ask is to direct county staff to remove all the document assumptions that link Parcel C to Newtown. This means revising the draft mixed-use descriptive language and the title, and naming everything Eastern State Parcel C. We requested this in last June, and I know that the applicant concurred with removing Newtown from the application title, but no change has been made officially to any of the documents. Our second ask is not to allow any new road access through the Newtown residential community, specifically the cut-through of Olive Drive. As submitted, the proposal includes an extension of that road, and in the face of community pushback, the applicant said they would not require it, yet the application remains unchanged. They further stated ABVA said they would deed the remaining vacant lot that enables that cut through to our association, but that has not been done. Even with these statements, we don't have any official assurance from the county that a cut through wouldn't be built. They're speaking as an applicant, but we don't know about emergency access and fire review by the county. These considerations might prevail and would reverse this concession. So can we receive some form of official assurance that there will not be a cut-through? Our third ask is to require that the community have a separate community association. Do not allow that development to become part of either the Newtown Residential or the Newtown Commercial Association. ABVA has noted that even if the Newtown Residential Association doesn't want it, they could become part of the Commercial Association. We don't want that either. And why should we care about that? Because our two associations are linked. There is a county registered document, an amenities use agreement, that means that the developer can bring land without any say by the Newtown Residential Association into the community's sharing of amenities and trails and things of that nature. That will certainly complicate our expenses and our sharing arrangements and really does not benefit the owners in our association. We were never built to absorb this many homes. Fourth, we would like you to encourage the state to seek other developers. I will not go through all of the concerns we have about ABVA, but we feel that they've had ample opportunity to come forward with a cogent revised land use application that addresses community concerns, and that has not happened. Our fifth concern is in the area of protecting the environment, less density, less impact on stormwater. These are all items that will recur once we get to the zoning stage, but we are having placeholders to let you know that there are a lot of questions to be answered. We think that new players should be welcome to the table to answer them. There has not been any more transparency today than there was last June. And while we understand that you may be postponing this action this evening, please take additional steps as a sign of good faith to our community. And do not institutionalize any expectation that Parcel C must look like Newtown and become part of Newtown. Supervisor Eisenhower has been very supportive, and he commented in September that this area is the core of the county, and the board needs to get the development right. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Chris Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Henderson, 101 Keystone. I was trying to think back in what year it occurred, but it's more than 20 years ago now. There was a study done on the Eastern State property, and it was called the Crossroads Study. Perhaps some of you are familiar with it. If you're not, then I would encourage you to look at it. I was one of probably 100 stakeholders at the time who was involved in that, and I thought that the plan was extremely well done and was representative of really good urban planning. And so to deny the connectivity of the parcels and the adjacency to Newtown I don't know is realistic. I understand the sensitivity by residents to potential traffic impacts, noise, so forth and so on, but there are some pretty significant topographical challenges with regard to Parcel C, where they would need to build bridges and cross over sensitive environmental areas and all of that. So from a planning perspective, the Crossroads study actually did a masterful job at looking at the potential land uses for that area. It is the center of the county, as Mr. Eisenhower has recognized, and therefore it's important that we get it right. I had previously addressed issues with regard to affordability. That may be an opportunity for the county to set the table for an affordable community that is on the bus line, near community services, near shopping, and near the center of life for James City County and Williamsburg proper. That would really put some meat on the table for those that are looking for affordable housing. And you could do it at a scale that would be impactful as opposed to a 5-unit or 10-unit subdivision that specifically targets affordable units or a select number of a larger number. With regard to the commercial property, I've always felt that the commercial property was best suited for a regional facility. And I know that you have endorsed the regional rec center that would be constructed at the visitor center location in a joint venture with York County and the city. In my mind, the commercial property that abuts 199 and the exit ramp onto Long Hill Road, that would be a superior location because of the access. It would provide ample parking, and you could also construct a hotel facility and restaurants that would be there that would benefit James City County directly as opposed to a shared financing arrangement. So I believe that the property placed in custodial hands of James City County versus the Commonwealth would result in the best end product for us all. It would allow James City County to dictate the future, and I would encourage you to explore options to pursue its acquisition and development in consultation with the community. Thank you.
Okay, that's the last speaker card for this item. I'm going to close this public hearing now and look to the board. Mr. Eisenhower.
Mr. Chairman, I would, two things. Number one, I would move that we do defer consideration of LU 2000-0002 and LU 22-0003 for another 12 months from today, or until a rezoning application is submitted, whichever comes first. And I would ask that staff take the step administratively to go back and, if you will, modify the language that we have in there to remove the reference to Newtown, because it's Newtown parcels A and B on one side and Newtown parcel C on the other side. And I think if we just designate it that way until we know such time as who's coming forward and what application would be they would be proposing, would maybe offer some of our folks in Newtown a little bit more assurance that it's not a predetermined thing.
Just for clarification, Mr. Eisenhower, I think you said Newtown parcels. I think, did you mean Eastern State?
Eastern State parcel A and B, and Eastern State parcel C. I'm sorry, my mistake there. To remove the mention of the words Newtown from as it is currently associated with parcel C. So that's my motion. I do.
Do you have both items in your motion?
Yes, I had both LU 2 and 3 for 12 months. Or
I would ask that you separate that. I'm concerned about the second part just because Ms. Larson is not here.
Okay.
That would be my concern, that we wait on that until she can weigh in on that.
We can. What do you mean? The new
second part.
She can be here. Is that what you're worried about?
The second part, I don't have a problem with.
Oh, you mean about
the
the
12
changing the
changing
terminology?
language, yeah.
Okay, fine.
I don't have a problem with the.
Okay, well,
the
my
12
motion will be
months.
for the deferral for 12 months and six,
Okay.
and then we will come back at our next meeting and talk about the terminology of that, if that's all right with you all.
That's good.
I do want to thank the Newtown folks for giving us that complete list of things. I know that that's something that they have had extensive discussions, and again, we still have nothing firm, so.
So any discussion? If not, Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Just a reminder, that public hearing number 5, the applicant has requested a deferral until June 14th, and so we will not have a presentation or staff report on that particular item. We will keep the public hearing on that open until that date. And we'll move now on to, I guess I should open the hearing. Yes, right, sorry. I'll open the hearing. We have no cards. Oh, we do. I'm sorry. Sorry, we do have cards. I wonder if any of these. Again, a reminder that you're certainly welcome to speak at this public hearing, but that if you do, you would not have the opportunity to speak at the June meeting. Barrett King. Craig Hardison. Chris Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Henderson, 101 Keystone. As a resident of Ford's Colony and a former board member of the HOA and also a Planning Commission member, when the original proffered master plan for the CCRC was approved, I would like to support the revised plan. My biggest concern would be relative to access and basically eliminating the second access point on News Road. I think it's important that we provide multiple points of ingress and egress for these large facilities, particularly for emergency vehicles. If there's a criticism of traffic planning in James City County, it's the fact that we reflexively go to cul-de-sacs and neighborhoods with one way in and one way out. And when you do that, we wonder why our primary and secondary roads are always crowded and overtaxed. It's because there is no interconnectivity between neighborhoods. We specifically isolate them, and we only give them one way in and one way out. And in the event of natural emergencies, of hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and things like that, people need multiple points of ingress and egress, plus it takes pressure off of our major secondaries and primary roads because there's other ways to get around and through the county. So I would encourage you to look at the vehicular access points for the project. Based upon my review of the plan, it looked like they've pulled buildings back in and reduced the footprint, which is, I think it's fine. I think there was a slight increase in the numbers. To me, it's fairly consistent with the plan that was originally approved and therefore continues to be of benefit to Ford's Colony residents and owners like myself who really, after thoughtful consideration, saw tremendous benefit in the adjacencies of the CCRC affiliated from a master plan perspective with the HOA and the community. So that's kind of the historical perspective on it. I haven't taken a poll of Ford's Colony residents or anything like that, but that's just the benefit of the institutional and historical knowledge from back when the original decision was made. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes the speaker cards. We'll keep the public hearing open until June 14th and then move on to public hearing number 6, which is HW 22. Oops. Keep bouncing away from me. HW 19-0001. Is that right?
No.
It looked like that. I didn't think that the number is changing on me here. It is go. HW 220001, Busch Gardens Height Waiver Extension. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. Mr. Anthony Lubier of VHB has applied on behalf of SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment to request a 36-month extension of Height Waiver -19-0001 due to difficulties faced with the COVID-19 pandemic. No other changes are proposed. Height Waiver -19-0001 was approved on June 11th, 2019, authorizing a height limitation waiver for a proposed attraction to reach a height of 355 feet above grade. Condition number 4 of the approved resolution requires that construction be commenced by June 11th, 2022. With the proposed resolution, that condition would be extended by 36 months, requiring that construction be commenced by June 11th, 2025. Staff finds this application consistent with the zoning ordinance and the 2045 comprehensive plan and recommends that the Board of Supervisors approve this application subject to the proposed resolution. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is also in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Langer. Any questions for staff? Okay. Then we do have speaker cards from the applicant, Susie Cheeley. Did you care to make a presentation?
My name's Susie Cheeley. I'm a representative of Busch Gardens, and really I'm just here to answer any questions. It really doesn't even seem like it was that long ago that I was here requesting the height waiver, but...
While you're here, I did hear about a new ride. Did you want to tell us about that one?
Well, you know how it is.
Next visit.
We're not really supposed to talk about details of those things. But yeah, it's just, we just recently opened Pantheon, which was originally intended to be our 2020 attraction. So 2 years later, so we've definitely been put on a track of postponing the attractions and a lot of the construction over at the park. So that's why we're requesting the extension of this.
Thank you. And if we have any questions after the public hearing, we can ask your team. Chris Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the folks from Busch Gardens for being just great corporate citizens here in the county. I can remember as a small kid when the park first opened, and it's just been a tremendous family destination for generations. And my children, and hopefully my children's children, will have an opportunity to be there. And I want to just encourage the board and James City County government generally to recognize the contribution that Busch Gardens makes to James City County and to our overall quality of life, and to do everything within its power to provide them the latitude that they need to be competitive in the family entertainment marketplace. I think about the benefits of the Halloween programs that they have in Christmastown, and these are one-of-a-kind programs that can only be found here. And we should be encouraging the Busch Gardens folks to continue to use their imagination and creativity to bring us better and bigger and more spectacular attractions. So I think that's critically important as a long-term resident and native of this area, that we recognize when we've got a winner and be as supportive as we absolutely can be to allow them to do what they need to do in order to grow and sustain their business. Thank you.
No further cards. I will close the public hearing, and if nobody has any questions.
Motion for approval?
Motion to approve the extension. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. That's the last of our public hearings. We'll now move on to board considerations. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight. We have S21-0072, 7751 Newman Road, Family Subdivision. Mr. Wysong.
Good evening once again to the board. Mrs. Sheila Chandler has submitted a family subdivision application on behalf of Mr. Kenneth Chandler to create a 6.07 acre lot within the existing parcel, which is addressed 7751 Newman Road. This property is approximately 50 acres. It's zoned A1 General Agricultural and is part of the Christensen's Corner Agricultural and Forestal District. Per this AFD ordinance, a subdivision of land shall result in parcels greater than 25 acres, except in cases where the Board of Supervisors approve of smaller lots as part of family subdivisions, which is why the case is before you all today. If approved, the new 6.07 acre parcel would remain within the AFD. There are no proposed changes to the AFD or negative impacts on surrounding property, and both the Virginia Department of Health and VDOT have recommended approval of this project. The project is not required to be reviewed by the Planning Commission. At its January 27th meeting, the AFD Advisory Committee recommended approval of the family subdivision application by a vote of 6-0. Staff recommends the board authorize this application for this lot, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and I believe the Chandlers are in the audience tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff? If not, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Okay. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Okay. That brings us now to board requests and directives.
Mr. Chairman, just one thing. I did want to extend my personal thanks to County Administrator Scott Stevens and to Parks and Rec John Carnifax for their help in putting on the Vietnam Veterans Day ceremony on the 29th of March. 3 years ago, we had about 75 people come out, and I was a little worried on the 29th because it was about chill factor of about 27 degrees early in the morning, and it was I wasn't sure how many people were going to show up, but we put out chairs for 200, and we had them all filled and people standing. So it was well over 200 people. We had passed out close to 140 certificates and pins to Vietnam veterans, and it was a highly successful program. And I will like to specifically mention our eldest veteran, Mr. Charles Yerkes, who was 99 years old. He was a veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And he got up from the back of the room and walked up with using his walker, but he walked up front to get his pin and his certificate, and got a rousing round of applause from everybody in the community. And I want to thank all the folks in the community that came out and helped participate and make that a wonderful ceremony. That's
Thank
all
you
I
very
have.
much. Thank you for the work that you put into organizing that event.
I don't have much to bring up. HR Tech Finance, we're working to refinance some of the projects with the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission. We were hoping to end up coming back with a lot more money, but the changes in the environment and the financial stuff that's going on has limited us on what we're being able to bring back. So we're still not sure exactly what the numbers would be, but we're hoping for a savings of 80 million to return back into roads and transportation. But with the tick-ups in the interest rates and everything else that's going on, it may end up being less than that when we're all said and done. So I'll report back once we know our numbers and figures, but at least we're able to refinance some things and put that money back into transportation and keep that flowing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hippel. Great. Ms. Sadler?
I would just like to thank Mr. Stevens for his constantly taking my phone calls and addressing all the budget questions, because my phone's been blowing up. I just want to say thank you for your help with all
Yes,
that.
ma'am, anytime.
Especially budget time, right?
Anytime.
Our favorite time of year.
Right. And I just wanted to mention a couple of quick things. The first is want to congratulate the county administrator, Ms. Day, and the county staff for putting together the budget community meeting that occurred last week that may not have been very well attended, but was extremely well presented. And the information from that meeting is available on county's YouTube channel, I believe, and good information provided for citizens who are interested in knowing about the budget process and its implications. And also to mention an absolutely terrific event that was organized in order to commemorate Child Abuse Prevention Month. This took place at the end of March 25th, at the James City County Recreation Center. There were dozens of organizations and resources available for folks to learn about opportunities to identify instances of child abuse, to help counsel folks who might run into issues relating to child abuse. And it was just a tremendous event with a very inspiring young speaker, a young man who presented himself exceptionally well, and thought that it was just a tremendous opportunity for folks to learn more. If you've seen the blue pinwheels that are spinning in the air out front of many community buildings, you'll know that they are a part of this month's commemoration of child abuse prevention. And hopefully people will take advantage of the opportunity to learn more about ways in which we can prevent this terrible blight on society. And with that, I will also mention that we were supposed to have a closed session this evening for the purpose of considering an appointment to the Colonial Behavioral Health Board, but we have a staff recommendation to appoint Mr. Roy Witham, who is the superintendent of the Virginia Peninsula Regional Jail, for an expired term that will end on June 30th, 2022, and I would entertain a motion to make that appointment.
Motion?
We have that motion. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. And now we'll turn to reports of the county administrator.
Thank you, Mr. McGlinnan. The only thing I would mention, we did send out over 29,000 real estate reassessments. We've talked about that a few times, and I just want to remind those that might have missed it earlier, if they don't feel their real estate reassessment is accurate, to please call our real estate division, 253-6650, 253-6650. You have until April 30th to submit an appeal to the value. So I just want to remind our citizens of that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn to 1 p.m. on April 26th for a budget business meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion. Mr. Stevens, call the roll, please.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries. Great.
All right, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting of James City County Service Authority Board of Directors. And we'll go ahead with roll call. Mr. Powell, would you do roll, please, sir?
Mr. Eisenhower.
Here.
Ms. Sadler.
Here.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Here.
Mr. Hippel.
Here. And now, will Ms. Larson be joining us?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, I didn't think she would make it, and I wish her all the best with what she's going through right now. Public comment, do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
Okay. Consent calendar consists of 2 items. You can read those. Anyone wish to pull anything from the consent calendar? May I have a motion?
Adoption of the consent calendar.
Thank you, sir. Roll call.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye.
Ms. Sadler.
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
Mr. Hippel.
Aye. All right, public hearings. We have a public hearing on fiscal year 2023 James City Service Authority budget. Mr. Powell.
Good evening. I am pleased to present the proposed fiscal year 23 budget for the James City Service Authority. Fiscal year 23 is the first year of a biennial budget. The fiscal year 23 budget is proposed for adoption, and the fiscal year 24 budget is presented for planning purposes. The proposed fiscal year 23 budget addresses 6 major issues. One is a sustainable long-term water supply, which is also part of the county's strategic plan. We continue to work with DEQ on this issue as it relates to our groundwater withdrawal permit, and we continue to monitor the progress of the SWIFT initiative. The proposed budget increases the contribution to the Alternative Water Supply Fund from $500,000 in the current fiscal year to $1 million per year in both fiscal year 23 and 24. In addition to pursuing alternative sources, our second key issue of water conservation and resource protection are key elements of this budget. Initiatives include the continuation of the increasing block structure to promote conservation, development of a communication plan, continuation of a rebate program, and an increase in the CIP for rehabilitating sewer infrastructure to prevent overflows. The majority of JCSA's CIP focuses on the third key issue of modernizing infrastructure, facilities, and technology. Projects include engineering design for the replacement of the water mains in Tuano Estates, replacement of a 12-inch water line near the Recreation Center, and rehabilitation of 3 1970s-era lift stations. The CIP also contains funding for a 16-inch steel water main across College Creek Bridge
SCADA upgrades at the Five Forks water treatment plant, and replacement of VFDs at 7 lift stations. The fiscal year 23 and 24 budgets also provide $1 million toward the approximate $8 million target in the Repair and Replacement Reserve Fund, which will be used in fiscal year 23 and 24 to replace VFDs at well facilities. 2 new positions in the fiscal year 23 budget and 3 in the fiscal year 24 budget are focused on maintaining our infrastructure. The maintenance specialist will be paired with existing industrial electricians to promote safety in the maintenance of our facilities. The fiscal year 23 budget adds a wastewater maintenance mechanic position to keep up with system growth, and the 24 budget adds a wastewater collection crew leader and wastewater collection specialist also to keep up with growth. Like many other utilities, JCSA has a significant number of employees with many years of service who are approaching retirement age. In addition, the technical skills required for these positions are in high demand. Finding and keeping these employees is a challenge. To address our 4th key issue, succession management and recruitment and retention, the fiscal year 23 and 24 budgets include a salary increase of 5%, with the fiscal year 23 budget including an additional $1,500 salary supplement. JCSA's regulatory compliance responsibilities, the 5th key issue, are a major driver of budget expenses. In anticipation of future requirements as it relates to the lead and copper rule, JCSA has completed a corrosion control study and will pursue the recommended improvements to optimize treatment processes by adding corrosion control inhibitor at 7 well facilities. The fiscal year 23 and 24 budgets also include funding to address our responsibilities under the consent order and to address increased sampling and water quality analysis activities required as our water system grows. Maintaining reasonable rates while saving for future investments is an ongoing challenge posed by our 6th key issue of affordability and financial resilience. The multi-year rate plan includes gradual increases to avoid sudden, large rate shocks. Long-range planning promotes affordability by identifying time periods when an increase is not required, such as the case for at least the next 2 fiscal years in the sewer fund. The fiscal year 24 budget includes a finance specialist position to assist in managing the financial functions of the service authority, focusing on accounting and purchasing. The next slide shows the total revenues and expenses broken down by both the water fund and the sewer fund, the adopted budget for the current fiscal year, and the proposed fiscal year 23 and 24 budgets. The proposed fiscal year 23 budget is a 1.9% increase over the current year's budget. The next slide lists the major differences in the fiscal year 23 budget from the fiscal year 22 budget. On the revenue side, we anticipate additional interest income, and we anticipate additional revenue from the increase in the fixed charge in the water fund. On the expense side, I've already discussed most of the items that are listed there already. The next slide breaks out the revenues and expenses in a different format, and you can see from this that most of the revenue is generated from our service revenue on both the water and sewer funds. The next slide, I wanted to highlight this information that's presented in the budget. Daily residential water consumption per person is trending downward. There we go. Which is good news, especially if it results in a delay in any capital expenditures that would be needed to develop a new water source. However, it does result in some issues in our short-term budgeting as it relates to potential reductions in operating revenue. With regard to the proposed fiscal year 23 rates, there is a 3.5% increase proposed in water service charges and fixed charges. What that means for the customer who stays in Tier 1, the rate increases from $3.75 per 1,000 gallons to $3.86 per 1,000 gallons. The monthly fixed charge for a typical residential 5/8 inch meter increases from $5.41 to $5.71. As mentioned earlier, there's no rate increase proposed for the sewer service charge or fixed charge. If these rates are adopted, the typical 5,000 gallon per month user will see their bill increase from $44.77 per month to $45.71 per month, an increase of 94 cents, which is illustrated on the next slide. JCSA's water rate would remain the lowest in the region, and we would still have the 3rd lowest combined bill in the Hampton Roads region. I want to conclude, I guess, with just a couple of comments. First of all, the budget is the public debut of our slightly modified logo.
which hopefully has a little bit more of a modern look to it. And it's also the debut of our new tagline, which is working today to protect tomorrow. So I just wanted to mention that is the sort of the public debut of this. I also wanted to thank a few people. Tina Colonna and her assistant helped us dramatically in improving the appearance of this document this year. So I wanted to give them credit for all the work they did to help us make this document look better. And of course, as always, I want to thank Ms. Luton, who, while I'm the one who's making the presentation, as you know, most of the work in this budget is her work, and I certainly want to recognize her and thank her for all of her efforts in putting this document together. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
I don't have a question, but I just think that, you know, one of the most remarkable things that we can see in terms of the impact of some changes in the ways in which homes are being equipped these days is that residential usage rate. I mean, the decline from, what, 86 to 61 gallons a day, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous accomplishment to see that kind of change occur.
Yeah. And I think there's room for that number to go down more, especially if...
that's the good news.
Right, right, that's the good news, yes. But especially as it relates to if we can, you know, part of our communication plan is to try to get the message out, the cost of irrigation. And so if we can have any influence on driving irrigation down, that number can go down further.
Yeah, be amazing. Have questions? Okay, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Any speaker cards?
No, sir.
I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and there's no action needed on this item. And next, we'll go into G, Board Considerations, Contract Award of $102,607 ground maintenance service for lift stations and wells. Mr. Powell.
JCSA's contract for ground maintenance services for lift stations and wells is expiring, and 4 firms responded to an RFP for a new contract. An evaluation committee selected RSG Landscaping, LLC as the most qualified firm. They have successfully completed work for some other governmental organizations, including the City of Charlottesville, Department of Public Utilities, and the City of Lynchburg Public Works. An initial 1-year contract term was negotiated of $102,607. Contract contains options for 5 additional 1-year renewal periods. Staff recommends that the board approve the attached resolution authorizing award of the contract for grounds maintenance services for lift stations and wells to RSG Landscaping, LLC for $102,607.
Any questions for Mr. Powell, or may I have a motion?
Just a question of, where is this firm located?
I think they're out of Richmond.
Okay. Yeah. I'll move adoption of the contract award.
Thank you, sir. Roll call, please, sir.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye.
Ms. Sadler.
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
And Mr. Hippel.
Aye. All right, number 2, contract award of closed-circuit television inspections of the cross-country gravity sanitation sewer pipes. Mr. Powell.
JCSA has approximately 132 miles of 8 to 18-inch cross-country gravity sanitary sewer pipes located in easements without public or private roads for vehicular traffic. Our consent order requires a regular internal television inspection of these pipes at least every 15 years to identify blocked and damaged areas that require repairs. An RFP was publicly advertised for this work, and 6 firms responded. An evaluation committee selected 3 firms as the most qualified: East Coast Infrastructure Incorporated, McKim & Creed Incorporated, and Tri-State Utilities. The initial contract term is 2 years with the option of 4 additional 1-year renewals. Costs will be calculated using negotiated linear foot and cleaning prices as outlined in the memo. Staff recommends approval of the attached resolution authorizing the award of closed-circuit television inspection of cross-country gravity sanitary sewer pipes contract to East Coast Infrastructure, McKim & Creed, and Tri-State Utilities.
Any questions, or may I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
And Mr. Hippel.
Aye. All right, number 3, contract award for $270,267 for lift station 2 through 4 and motor package replacement, Commonwealth Engineering Sales, Inc. Mr. Powell.
Lift Station 24, located at 75 Jan Ray Circle, serves the Windy Hills Mobile Home Park, the Virginia Peninsula Regional Jail, and the Merrimack Juvenile Detention Center.
It has the third highest wastewater flows in the JCSA system of 77 lift stations. Many of the station's building systems and equipment are at the end of their useful life. Scheduled rehabilitation work consists of several items, including the replacement of the pump and motor package. Due to increasingly long lead times and material shortages, staff determined directly purchasing the pump and motor package was the most efficient procurement method. There are a limited number of vendors that are able to supply this vacuum-primed pumps that are required at lift station 24 that meet JCSA's design standards. Staff determined that a sole source purchase of a Smith & Loveless vacuum-primed pump and motor package from Commonwealth Engineering and Sales Incorporated provides the best value and best meets the needs of JCSA. Staff recommends approval of the resolution authorizing the $270,267 sole source purchase from Commonwealth Engineering and Sales Incorporated to furnish the lift station 24 pump and motor package.
Any questions,
A
or may I
couple
have a
of,
motion?
just a couple of quick ones.
Yes, sir.
I was surprised to hear that this is the third highest flow. Why is that the case? It doesn't
It's,
seem-
I mean, a lot of it is the jail and the mobile home park, but there are other mobile home parks in that area as well, so.
Oh, so it serves more than just
Oh,
that
yeah,
one?
it's just, yeah, I'm sorry, I guess I should have made that more clear. It's not just these three entities,
I
but
see.
those are the three largest that are in
gotcha,
that,
okay.
in that collection area, yeah.
And you're purchasing the package, and then once that arrives, you'll have a contract for somebody to come and install?
That's part of this agreement, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Move for the adoption.
Sir, roll call, please, sir.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
And Mr. Hippel?
Aye. All right, board requests and directives. Anyone have anything for Mr. Powell?
Just one quick thing, the JCSA responded very quickly on Saturday evening when my neighbor experienced a leak in her water and provided very professional response and terrific advice to the homeowner, and appreciate very much Stephen coming out on what I understand was his last weekend assignment before he takes advantage of his promotion to engineering. It was a good way for him to move up the ladder. Appreciate it very much.
I appreciate those comments, Mr. McGlinnan. I'll make sure that Mr. Burcham receives the recognition.
Just a quick thank you to you. I know there have been a few individuals who've had some issues with their bills and the timing, and I appreciate your quick assistance in addressing those. Thank you.
All right, next we'll move into the general manager's update.
I'll give you a brief update on the current water line break it's near the intersection of Monticello and John Tyler. It has resulted in all of Ford's Colony being, not Ford's Colony, Governor's Land. All of Governor's Land is out of service at the moment. It's a 12-inch line, so it's a big line. We're currently still waiting for all the utilities to be marked, so we have not started the repair yet, but we will start as soon as all the utilities are marked. The road has been closed in conjunction and coordination with VDOT and the police department. There's a detour in place going in both directions. The traffic's being detoured via Brickbat Road. I know there was a report that the road had collapsed. I'm going to go out there after this meeting. My folks on the scene say it's not. It is broken up, which is why the traffic detour is in place. But my understanding is not fully collapsed. I don't know if that's a distinction with a whole lot of difference, but regardless, the road is closed. So there will be road repairs required after the line is repaired. So this is a fairly difficult, involved, and potentially lengthy repair.
And for our viewing public, usually when you call for having utilities marked, you have to wait 2 days in order to get them marked. And during emergencies, it's 4 hours.
That's right.
So, they may see our people out there that can't do anything until we get all the markings in place in order to make sure that we're safe and we don't tear up anything else in the process of repairing.
That's right.
This break.
But we are mobilized and we're ready to begin as soon as we can safely begin.
Right. Okay, just, because some people, they stood out here forever. And, they don't understand that we need to mark everything to make sure we don't do anything else in the process of repairing what we need to repair.
Thank you. Anything else, Frank? All right, then we'll go ahead and look for an adjournment until 1 p.m. April 26, 2022 for a budget business meeting.
It says 5 on here.
Huh?
Yeah, it should be one.
One, yeah, I got one.
Yeah, it should be
Don't
one.
pay attention
I don't
to
want to come to 2.
Move for
man
adjournment to April 26th at 1 p.m.
Thank you. All right, roll call.
All right, Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
And Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.